And now, the Rink Rap Podcast from Forever Blueshirts, talking all things New York Rangers hockey. Here's your host, Jim Cerny.
What's up, Rangers faithful? I'm Jim Cerny. This is the Rink Rap Podcast at Forever Blueshirts. Thanks for joining us again this week. Special guest today, Jonny Lazarus, is going to join us. If anybody is going to be able to kind of work through your frustration, share in your frustration, share in JT Miller's frustration, share in Mika Zibanejad's frustration about the Rangers' inability to produce offensively on home ice or to actually win a game at Madison Square Garden, then your guy is Jonny Lazarus. He's going to join us. Of course, Jonny from the Morning Cuppa Hockey podcast, and of course, all the other things that he does. You know, I kid with him. He is all over the map when it comes to hockey, socially, on Instagram and, on X and the stuff he does for Open Ice, Bleacher Report, and just everything that he does. And he does a great job. And he's just a really, really good dude. And most importantly, for those of you out there watching and listening, he loves the Rangers. He's so passionate about it. So maybe we'll even, fire him up a little and ask him about that Alexis Lafreniere prediction that he had, that Alexis Lafreniere is going to score or record 100-point season sometime in the near future. Well, he said that prior to last season. Didn't go so well, and it's not looking so good this season because guess what? The Rangers can't score. So, you can't even get a cheap secondary assist these days, if you're Lafreniere or anybody else, because nobody's putting the puck in the net with any regularity, at least at Madison Square Garden, where the Rangers now have scored one goal in losing 4 games. That is 240 minutes of hockey at Madison Square Garden this season. Rangers have led for less than 5 minutes this season on home ice. Only after Artemi Panarin scored the game-opening goal in the first minute of their game on Monday night against the Minnesota Wild. And what did the Rangers do with all of this prosperity? We've been waiting 2 weeks to get a goal on home ice. What do the Rangers do? They just ended up playing a terrible period of hockey. Feet weren't moving, beaten to the puck, losing puck battles left and right against Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild. I know they make their way into the playoffs almost every year, and they're a pain in the neck to play against. Hardworking team. The Minnesota Wild, though, 4th game of a 5-game road trip, had lost the first 3 games, 2 in regulation, 1 in overtime. They played all season without Matt Zuccarello, top 6 forward, popular guy in these parts, of course. Marco Rossi was out of the lineup on Monday night. I know Zach Goshen isn't a big offensive guy from the blue line, but he's a key defenseman back there for them, was out of the lineup. And the crowd going nuts. The goal song for the first time this season when Panarin scored a beauty. I mean, textbook beauty. All 5 Rangers touched the puck at least once in the sequence as they transition from the defensive zone through the neutral zone into the offensive zone, capped by a neat Zibanejad feed and a great finish by Artemi Panarin. Textbook. It was beautiful. Fans going nuts. Rangers, the weight of the world off their shoulders at the Garden. And then they stopped skating. And Minnesota took it to them in that first period. The rest of they dominated the Rangers. Rangers came into Monday night having lost 3 home games this season, their first 3. Scoreless in all 3, shut out in all 3. And they did not have, in any of those games, any of those 9 periods, they were not as bad as they were after scoring early and taking a 1-0 lead as they were in the first period at Madison Square Garden on Monday night. Minnesota tied it. Minnesota was better in the early stages of the second period. Rangers started to find their footing as the period went on. kind of played Minnesota, in even terms, came out flying in the third period, did the Rangers, but their inability to put the puck past Filip Gustafsson burned them again. Mika Zibanejad had a couple grade A chances. JT Miller, a couple good looks, some good looks on their only power play of the night. And it caught them. Minnesota scores, scramble, loose puck. Igor didn't know where it was, ends up in the back of the net. Minnesota's up 2-1. They get the empty netter because, of course, they do. Rangers have allowed 4 empty net goals already this season. And even though Igor Shesterkin allowed 2 goals or fewer, again, 6 starts this season, each one 2 goals or fewer. But the Rangers lose. Igor losing record, 2-3-1 so far in 6 starts this season. Mainly because the Rangers don't score a lot, and they hardly score it all at home. They're doing some good things. Monday night wasn't the greatest example of all the good things that they can do, but even when they weren't great, they still ended up with a number of grade A chances, and JT Miller said it post-game. He was spot on. Said, we weren't really good, but at the end of the day, we're right there. It's a tie game, third period. The Rangers were taking it to them early in third. They just can't get out of their own way. And one goalie after another standing on his head, keeping the puck out of the net. And there the Rangers are, 0-4-0 at the Garden. But I bring you some good news. Actually, the good news should have been that the Minnesota Wild were the opponent on Monday. But I've got better news. The San Jose Sharks come to town on Thursday. The San Jose Sharks, winless as we record this before they play the Islanders. The San Jose Sharks. Talk about teams that can't get out of their own way. Worst team in the NHL last year. And they're heading down the same path this season. They come to the Garden Thursday night. Rangers seeking their first win. And if somehow the Rangers don't win that game, and I really, 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 really believe, a lot of reallys there, that they're going to win on Thursday. But if they don't, guess what happens next? They don't play at the Garden for another week and a half. I have a 4-game road trip out west beginning Sunday in Calgary. Oh boy. I know the Rangers have been really good on the road. They have at least a point in every road game. Am I doing that right? Am I doing the calculation right in my head? Yeah. Right. Because the loss in Toronto was an overtime game. They got a point for that. The Road Warriors. Keep getting points on the road. Wouldn't hurt to kind of get some points at home either. Some goals would be nice. Well, they got one. Another positive sign. I'm going to be positive here. Positive Jim. Artemi Panarin. Skating, moving his legs, creating opportunities. He didn't look right at the first, 6 games. Then he has a hand in all 4 goals Saturday night in Montreal. Scores their only goal Monday at the Garden against the Wild. So looks like he's kind of rounding into form. And love the feedback from you, the fans, at Jim Cerny on X. Hit me up in my notifications. Keep doing it. Love the feedback I've been getting from the fans about one of my recent columns this week about Artemi Panarin and how Rangers are a rock and a hard place trying to make a decision on his future. And of course, when I wrote that, he was sitting on 2 assists, no goals in 6 games. He's come alive a little bit more, but still it's a hot debate. And I love the opinions from the fans. So if you're watching, if you're listening, at Jim Cerny, hit me up, let me know what you think. And of course, I'm sure it's a topic we'll be talking about and writing about quite a bit. And, here on talking about it on the podcast and writing about it at Forever Blue Shirts, at foreverblueshirts.com. So that's where we're at right now. It's just a brief kind of introduction here because we're going to sit down and really do a deep dive into the New York Rangers right now. The good, the bad, the ugly, the current, the past, a little bit of everything with our special guest, Jonny Lazarus, That's coming up next. This is Rink Wrap at Forever Blue Shirts. Welcome back to Rink Wrap at Forever Blue Shirts. I'm Jim Cerny, and really pleased to welcome aboard a guy. He's been on the show once or twice before, but that was like before his mega stardom in the business. Like, I don't know that anybody gets more social media love and attention outside of Taylor Swift than this guy, our guest, Jonny Lazarus. So thanks for squeezing us in today, bud.
Well, thank you, Jim. And I don't know if Taylor Swift gets made fun of nearly as much as I do online. So I don't know if it's a good thing. I'm getting ripped left and right, especially for my Tom Wilson, Filip take the other day. I mean, I don't even want to talk about that, but yeah, my mentions never stop making fun of me. So
I got smoked. I got smoked because I said, you know what? That was a hockey hit. Like, and Filip got to stop looking at the puck.
Yeah.
And he's got to have his head up. And yeah, sure. Wilson, I'm sure he's like, a bear with raw meat in front of him or whatever. You know, he was going for it. He was looking to deliver that big hit. But I don't know. It might have been a touch late. If anything, it was interference.
I could do this for an hour, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
I don't know. I didn't have major issue with it, but
yeah,
the Ranger fan, how could you used to work for the team and you do a Rangers website? How can you say this about Hill? I'm like,
you separate it.
Right. Absolutely. So all right. So we'll move on.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah.
You are though. You are big time here. Though. Come on.
Thank you. I appreciate
Taylor
that.
Swift. I like putting you in that high level category. Right?
That means the world. Thank you.
He's trying to suppress the sarcasm.
I don't know if people hate Taylor Swift too. Some people do. So
no, I meant the level.
I know.
We'll move on for that. So talking about big hits, here's one of my takeaways from last night, and I wrote about it this morning. You know what I love? I love Braden Schneider leading with that shoulder. I know it wasn't the surgically repaired one, but absolutely blowing up Marcus Foligno with that hit late in the first period. And I love what I'm seeing out of Braden Schneider so far this season. So let's start with the positive before we go into why can't they score at home? Why can't they win at home? Start with the positive of, boy, that was a guy that really needed to be an X factor this season. And so far, I think he's answering the bell. I really like what I'm seeing from him at both ends of the ice. What do you think? And what do you think about Schneider as an X factor this season?
Yeah, I mean, that hit in particular, right? Like that's what I call a good hockey hit. You're separating the man from the puck. You know, it's open ice, it's shoulder to shoulder, everything's down, everything's tucked. Obviously, if you really want to go in slow-mo, you could say the elbow comes up after the contact, but like no one's really doing that. With Braden Schneider, like again, you wanted a guy who can show that he's worthy of getting top 4 minutes. I think he's done that. And I think obviously with the way the matchups have gone late in games, when Vakanainen was in, Mike Sullivan had shortened up his shifts in the third period and put Schneider on the left side. And that was something that happened in the Edmonton game, I believe was the first time it had been done, or one of the few times it's been done. And then again, in Montreal. But Schneider, I think the one thing that I am a little disappointed in still is I've always thought there was more offensive upside from him. I think he has a sneaky heavy shot that doesn't necessarily get off a lot. I know the hands aren't really there, and the skating is fine. He's a solid skater, but I wouldn't say Schneider is the most skilled defenseman. That said, like if they can just get the puck from low to high and have, who scored? JT Miller scored that deflection, right? Was it in Buffalo or Pittsburgh where JT tipped a Schneider shot from the point?
Wasn't it the Buffalo game?
I think the Buffalo game. Yeah, I think the Buffalo game. But that's just an example. Like Braden Schneider needs to find a way to get to the middle of the ice just a little bit more and beat that first layer of shin pads. Like I'm looking up his stats right now, and through 8 games for a guy that could shoot the puck as well as him, he's only got 12 shots. And the Rangers, while they are looking to generate more offense, I think a lot of it also has to come from the blue line. The high percentage of goals is when a defenseman gets the puck along the wall, walks to the middle, and shoots for a tip in front, right? Like that's where you see so many goals in the NHL come from. Obviously, you're missing one of the best net front presences now in the NHL who got traded this summer. But I think the Rangers need some help from their blue line when it comes to creating offense. It can't just be from Adam Fox. And now with the way the blue line looks, obviously with no Keandre, no Zach Jones even, I think Braden Schneider right now is that next guy who can help provide offense. So while he's looked great in the D zone, while he's looked great physically, I still think there needs to be a little bit more from him offensively. And maybe that's unfair because, that might not be who he is, but I think he is capable of contributing maybe, 25 to 30 points in a season. I don't think that's so much to ask. Like, he's put up 20 before. I think he had 20 last year. So, that's my spiel on Braden Schneider. But he is getting more minutes and more responsibility, and he's done well so far.
So it's interesting because I actually see more out of his offensive game this year. I think he's thinking more offense than he ever has in his career. And I actually like that aspect. I actually like that mentality. And I know, as you said, he's only recorded 12 shots on goal, but still, if you figure it out over the course of the season, the pace, I actually hate that, but the pace he's on now, he'd be 30, 40 shots higher than his single season high before. He'd never cracked 100 shots on goal, and his shot attempts are equally up as well. So I agree. Maybe he can work on finding better areas to get shots through. And you talk about the deflections and all that. But I think he is much more involved offensively. And that's not just, I don't think those numbers are just up because he's, quote unquote, quarterbacking power play too. I think I see it 5-on-5. So I kind of disagree a little bit.
Fair enough.
With that take. I like where he's headed. But I'm curious, in the long run, when and if Scott Morrow gets here and starts taking some of that responsibility, where it leaves Schneider, from an offensive point of view, and certainly from a power play point of view down the line. I know we're talking about something that may not happen for a while. But I do like what he's done actually offensively, in the way he's moving, the way he's thinking. And seeing it offensively in the early going this season.
Well, that's been something too. Like the D have been really aggressive, as far as pinching and keeping plays alive offensively. Like that's something that's been noticeable with Mike Sullivan. And, I still feel like they were a little bit aggressive under Peter Laviolette, but, maybe there's just a better F3 and, staying above the puck with Mike Sullivan. That's something that Noah Lab has actually been really good with is the way he tracks back and his speed, on the back check and just staying above the puck. But with Schneider and, even Susie before he got hurt, he was looking pretty good offensively too. Maybe my Schneider critique is just because I expect more as far as numbers go and production. And being that he hasn't scored a goal, and I know he's not a goal scorer, but the opportunities have been there, right? Like he hits that crossbar at Edmonton, or the game against Edmonton at home, which, obviously the Rangers haven't scored at home to that point. And, if that one goes in, a great read by him to come in and track that puck. I think it was a play that was toward the net and hit a shin pad. And then he kind of came downhill and one-timed it short side. But again, like point being, if they're not scoring offensively, you need some help from the back end. And to me, he's the next man up after Adam Fox right now, as far as offensive upside goes.
Yep. So
people could argue Matthew Robertson now, though. I don't know.
Well, now there's the other. You want to talk positives? Yeah. This is a guy pretty much people are giving up on, and when you think about it, we media,
rightfully so,
we were pretty shocked in the summer of 24 when he got a qualifying offer and was coming back. Signed the qualifying offer, came back, and you knew it was a make or break season. And to his credit, he made. Yeah. The numbers didn't jump off the charts at you. He's got some offensive ability. But he played key minutes for Hartford last year. He stayed healthy, which was a key. Didn't do that He didn't have the benefit of staying healthy earlier in his career. And he made the most of that opportunity. And I didn't think he had a great preseason. I don't think he had a terrible one. I didn't think he had a great one. But here, you talk about seizing an opportunity when Susie went out of the lineup hurt. He has done exactly that. And he's earned that right. He's earned that spot right now next to Will Borgen in the top 4. We'll see for how long it is, but he's, to me, the biggest surprise of the young season.
I think I would argue him. I would argue Rempe and Edstrom.
Yeah.
Who else would be a good surprise? There are some negative surprises too, I feel like, but the fact that I don't want to go away from the Robertson topic, but the fact that
No.
we're seeing Matt Rempe and Adam Edstrom out there with, 3 minutes to go in a game, down one, multiple games, out of the first 8, like that would have never happened, the last 2 years, right? So, while that could be a positive in some ways, it's also a negative saying our top guys aren't scoring, so we have no choice but to put the guys who are playing well offensively out there.
Yeah.
With Matthew Robertson, I think the biggest thing too is everything's just so simple, right? Like he doesn't seem to overhandle pucks, doesn't seem to make the game more complicated than it has to be. And I know I said this on Blueshirts Breakaway actually on their episode today, but like, I saw people on Twitter saying, "Oh, there's Matthew Robertson's first big mistake with the Cole Caulfield play on Saturday night." But that wasn't a poor read, wasn't a bad pinch. He whacked the puck on the blue line. That was a bouncing puck that he unfortunately whiffed on,
Yep.
and you got a prime goal scorer coming down the other way. Like that's a great play by Montreal, and that happens sometimes. But I haven't looked at Matthew Robertson at any point this year and said to myself, he looks like he doesn't belong. What's he doing out there? And again, when it comes to D, right? Sometimes if defensemen aren't noticeable, that could be a good thing.
Right.
Right. So,
Right.
yeah, Robertson's been steady. He's been simple. He gets the puck at the blue line. He makes the right play. He doesn't hold on to it too long. He'll either throw it in the corner and let the forwards go get it, or he'll try to get it to the net. He had a great look last night. I forgot who gave him the pass, but he came right down the dots. One time the puck, it hit like the back of the net or the side of the net. I thought it went in. I was like, oh my God, what a rip too.
Yeah.
Sneaky cannon on Matthew Robertson. But yeah, I mean, again, pleasant surprise. A guy who, I think he was around like the 240 AHL game mark. So like the new AHL rules too, like he'd be a veteran. And I think you can only have like 6 veteran skaters in the AHL now. Cause they're like, again, I've been saying this term, they're making it like a glorified junior league now.
Yeah.
They're aging out the old guys in the AHL, which is tough because now those guys are going overseas. Right. But yeah, again, just not to ramble on too much, but obviously very happy with what Matthew Robertson's shown so far.
Yeah, and to segue into obviously another big topic is what's the Sam Carrick line. I'm not calling them fourth line because you saw Sully was asked what was it the other day, so what about your fourth line? He's like, which line is that? Because this line is trusted. They're trusted in key minutes. They have played game altering or momentum altering. That's a better way of putting it. Shifts, smart hockey, staying out of the box, all of them, just really, really playing a relentless style that you're scared to make this reference because the Florida Panthers are who the Florida Panthers are. But you're telling me, take that, lift them out, superimpose the Florida Panthers uniform on them and say, boy, wouldn't they fit right in pretty nicely in the bottom 6 of that team as well? The way they play, the way they go about their shifts, the way they're committed defensively, the way they go north-south, get in, win puck battles. It's one thing to chase the puck. It's another thing to consistently win puck battles. And they're consistently winning puck battles. So I know that's a big windup, and I know you already mentioned what a nice surprise they are this season. But did you anticipate that it would come this soon, this fast, that it would come together based on what we saw, maybe the second half of last season when, of course, Edstrom was out injured?
Yeah, I don't think anyone could have predicted the success. Again, like I'm hesitant to say the success because I feel like this line, I think Carrick's the only one who's scored a goal so far.
Yep.
And I feel like they could have at least 6, 7, 8 goals by now, right? So success, I guess it's an appropriate word because they're doing their job, right? They're keeping the puck out of their own net and they're, bringing momentum through the entire bench. They're keeping the puck in the offensive zone, honestly. And they're setting up what's their job is to set up an offensive zone draw for the next group too, which is huge. Because, when you have Rempe, Carrick, and Edstrom out there for 30, 45 seconds, they tire out the opponent. Then you get Miller, Zibanejad, Panarin to come on, and have an offensive zone draw. Granted, it hasn't gone through the past couple games, but they're still getting the chances and getting the looks. Like that's what you want from a fourth line. To me, the biggest thing too is Adam Edstrom, for the amount of goalie or scoring chances, he gets, he's got to be a guy who's a better finisher. He's making things happen. And to your point, Jim, there was one play that I clipped in the Montreal game. The Rangers lose the faceoff in the D zone back. So they're out there for a D zone faceoff. Edstrom flies through because he's going to the opposite side point man because he's, it's the weak side D, or the strong side D, excuse me. And he's the strong side winger. And he picks the puck up, and I think it's Lane Hudson. He uses his body to beat Lane Hudson over the blue line, gets around to the goal line, throws a puck back to the wall. And I think it ends up going to Rempe for a scoring chance. And from that play, just from him jumping off the draw like that, they're in the offensive zone for 30 to 45 seconds. And that's late in the game too, protecting a lead. That's a big time play for Adam Edstrom. But these three have been very disciplined as well, right? We're 8 games in and Matt Rempe has 2 penalty minutes. I think nobody would have anticipated that either. So the way the three of them are clicking, I think that's, maybe I know Carrick's a little bit older, but, maybe this is the form of what the Islanders had in their identity line for so long, right? With Cizikas, Martin, and Clutterbuck. I think the Rangers have always lacked consistency from a fourth line.
Well, and from a third line, really the bottom 6, right? All the way through, which brings us to
Blair Betts is the last consistent fourth liner I could think of.
So it's so funny you mentioned Blair Betts. I would rave about this guy, when I was covering the team then and working for them then. I'm like, he is the most underrated guy that I can think of in recent, now long-term Ranger history. But inside that room, man, the coaching staff, the player, they love this guy. You talk about earning the trust. Every single guy trusted him anytime he was out there, every situation. And, that's not an easy thing to do when you're a bottom sixer, what you were just touching on.
Perfect fourth liner, Blair Betts. He was nails. I remember, I was a young kid, obviously watching him, but what a PKer he was.
Great PK.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And tough. Who laid him out? Was it Brashear? And then they signed Brashear that offseason as well.
I don't even remember. This is Blair Betts was what, 2006, 07, 08, those years. That was my, that's when I first started to form the memory,
Dude, you are killing me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Man, I'm putting away the birth certificate, the driver's license, my passport.
No, you're good.
I don't want to see anything with my age on it right now.
Those years are it's tough when I talk back and when we talk about Ranger history or whatever, because that 06 playoff run, that's obviously that was the first playoffs they made in quite some time, but I was 10 years old, that's when I first started to understand what I was even watching. So I wish I could go back and watch those series and the Rangers Penguins series back in 08. That was the first playoff game I'd ever been to, and I wish I just understood hockey more to see how the Rangers actually looked as a team. But whatever, I'm just kind of rambling now.
Yeah, no, but I get it. We all have that. There's always someone, some player, some team that draws you in, right? It makes you love them, makes you follow them. There's something about it. It's not always the best player. It's Blair Betts.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a guy like that. It's Colton Orr.
It was Sean Avery for me, honestly. I fell in love with Sean Avery at a young age. When you were at the Garden, he was on the ice, it was, chanting his name. My dad took me to the game where he was, on Dallas and came back for the first time.
Oh yeah.
I was obsessed with Sean Avery. I went to all those Steiner Sports autograph signings. Cause he was just theater, and that was those MSG days when Sean Avery was out there, man, that was the fun shit.
So I remember we were in Europe. It was that trip in 2000, the Prague trip.
Yeah.
And you know what happened, of course, with Sean on that trip, that, that's where basically they flew him out there so Torts could tell him, yeah, you're going to fly all the way back home.
Yeah.
I was in the hotel. I was in the gym, was working out or whatever. To see Torts there, and Torts behind the scenes, I found was a pretty easy guy to talk to. Once the cameras and microphones were away, and it was different. I worked for the team. He trusted me. He knew I wasn't going to say anything. So I actually, went there and I said, Sean, you're flying all the way out here. And he just ripped a, don't fucking talk to me about Sean Avery here. No, I'm not talking about Sean Avery. He was like hot. I'm like, okay. Got back on the treadmill. Yeah, talk to you later, Torrance. See you practice.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's like, all right, I know my place. Yeah. That's where like you almost get too comfortable. You're like,
credit to you though for asking.
Yeah, I shoot it with Torrance all the time. He's great. He's great with my son. He talks about family all the time. But Sean Avery, even with nobody around, he's like, yeah, okay. He put me in my place.
Yeah.
One of many who's put me in my place in this business. But so anyway, okay. So we'll circle it on back here. So, you love breaking things down. I know you do. And, we've heard Valley try and break things down. Dave Maloney try and break things down. Henrik, why can't this team score, much less win? Well, you can't win because you're not scoring.
Yeah.
Right now on home ice. And it translated a little bit to the road as well, but primarily at Madison Square Garden. Like, what are you seeing from X's and O's, or is it more here?
I think it's all here. Last night, again, different game. They got outplayed last night.
Correct.
I played that game, and everyone who's watched the 8 games knows that game and the home opener. Only 2 games where I watched that, and I'm like, not the best team tonight.
Yep.
So JT said it too. Like, they didn't deserve it last night, but I think a lot
there. They were right there. That's the crazy thing, right? It's still 1-1. You're not playing your best game. Sorry to cut you off, but
you're good.
And I thought JT did a great job saying that. After all this, we weren't good. We were completely outplayed after the Panarin goal, especially in that first period, but even bleeding into the second. But, you wake up or you snap out of it and you're like, we can win this game. All we got to do is score a goal. And they had the grade A's. Mika, JT, they had the grade A's, but they just couldn't bury it. So I guess that winds you back to the point you were probably leading up to.
No, it was good to hear JT say that though, because he was like, it's happened to us, right? Like, we've outplayed teams so far this year and we've come up short. And I think that's another positive you can take, right? Is that even if this team is getting outplayed, they're still going to have a fighting chance. Where last year when they were getting outplayed, it was turning into a 4-0, 5. I mean, that Kings game and I think the Sabres game last year at MSG, those were some of the worst 3-hour spans that I've ever had to sit through. And that's the one thing I'll take away from this so far. As frustrating as it is that they're not scoring goals, it's still enjoyable to watch, right? Like, I'm not sitting there saying, oh, this is torture. Like, this team does not give a shit. This is painful. It's like, oh my God, how are these not going in? Like, that's kind of what I'm sitting there saying. Like, that pass, I think Foxy made it on the power play, backdoor to JT, who was on his offside to try to tip it in, and it just went behind the net. Like, that's one of the plays JT was probably talking about.
Yep.
I was sitting there like, oh my God, like how the hell did that not go in? Like, and if that's Chris Kreider, it's probably going in. Not to, sidetrack. But again, that's a great quality look. And
by the way, I'm doing the counter here. That's 2 Kreider references without being asked about Kreider.
Well, no, listen, I'll tell you too, like, still the right move to move on from Kreider. The way they handled it, maybe not the best, but I think it made sense. But the play last night too, where like Adam Fox looks backdoor to Sherry, Spurgeon makes a great play. I think any defenseman that watches Adam Fox knows he's making that pass pretty much 10 out of 10 times. And Adam Fox is a guy who I'll never question when he passes the puck because he's one of the best at it in the NHL. That said, I think, I can bring it to my own experience a little bit. Obviously, I never played in the NHL, but when I wasn't scoring goals and I had a scoring chance, I was definitely overthinking it, anytime I got a chance. Whereas when pucks were going in, I was never thinking about it. I was just putting it on the net and, thinking it was going to go in. And the analogy I made on Blueshirts Breakaway, I'll shout them out again. When the Knicks are playing and they're getting open looks from the 3-point line and they're not going in, it's like, they're just unlucky right now. They're going through a funk. But at a certain point, you have to ask yourself too, maybe they're just not good 3-point shooters.
Correct.
And right now, I think the further this drags on, we're only 8 games in, so it's not a huge concern yet. It's frustrating, but not a concern yet. But if we're at 15 games and this team is still scoring maybe like 2 goals or less than 2 goals a game, you got to sit here and say, all right, this is not a team of finishers. This is a team that can't put the puck in. And again, like, you have in your top 6 right now, you have Will Cooley, who scored 20 last year and is a great player. And, hasn't really had that top 6 consistency yet, I guess, for lack of a better term, where he's playing on a line with Artemi Panarin and Mika Zibanejad. Like, that also comes with a lot of pressure. Like, he's a young player in this league and hasn't played with guys of their skill caliber yet. And, I'm sure he's thinking a little bit. It's only human nature. Like, oh man, like, I don't want to fuck this up. Right. Like, you're deferring to your line mates a little bit. That said, Connor Sherry playing with Lafreniere and JT Miller. Like, I think there's a lot of chemistry that still needs to be built there. Lafreniere is a totally different story. Like, I obviously had that take that everyone knows 2 years ago that I think he'd be a 100-point player. And I just, I don't know, like, that year he was just so different, right? He was driving, like, the 120 points Panarin had, like, while Panarin was so good, a lot of that was because of the plays Lafreniere was making. And I'd love to see those two back together again. I don't know if that's going to happen just because Trocheck's out and they need Mika in the middle. And I don't know. Maybe they do switch it. Who knows?
Yeah. Troch isn't gone forever. So,
yeah.
He's going to come back. You'd assume Mika's going to go back to the wing, and, then you move Sherry back into, a better role for him in the bottom 6. So you would think that Troch and Panarin and Lafreniere are going to get that opportunity.
Yeah. But the big thing to me too is the power play, right? And it's I'm trying to, like, think of the way to word this, but it's encouraging how many looks Mika's gotten in the bumper position. But at what point do you kind of just say, like, oh, maybe Mika should be on his one-time side where he's a bigger threat?
Right.
And, do you want Lafreniere in the bumper? I don't know if that's, like, the best place for him. But Panarin is not a threat to shoot on his offside flank. Lafreniere is not a threat to shoot on his offside flank. So I don't love Mika in the bumper position now that we're 8 games in and those chances aren't going in. But again, like, if you're sitting there and saying the chances keep coming and coming and coming, at some point it has to go in.
Right.
It's like a weird internal battle that they're probably having, right? Because like Mika was saying, I'd be discouraged, I'd be frustrated if I wasn't getting the looks, but I'm getting the looks. And he's playing great. Pucks just aren't going in. And that's why I feel for him.
Right. And I mean, there's so much that you said there that I could.
Yeah, I ran. Sorry.
No, but that's not sorry. I mean, that's awesome. It's great insight, great opinion, and thought provoking. And talking about Mika being moved off, moved out of that left circle spot for the one timer.
Mm.
The interesting thing is, if you're Mike Sullivan and you're coming in, and you're David Quinn and you're coming in, and you're saying, boy, that Ranger power play sucked last year. They were predictable. They've been predictable for years. It's been, largely the same group, the same strategy. Let's try something different with Mika. Let's put him in give different looks, make other teams defend us differently when we're on the power play, right? I think that's where the mindset was. But I think at some point, and it may be soon, I think Mika ends up back in that circle, right?
Yeah.
There's been too much success for too long. He's too comfortable there. Now you've given other teams something else to think about. But if he goes back there, maybe, and you know what, maybe sooner rather than later, it's time to make that move.
Plus, when Fox and Panarin are interchangeable and they're moving up top,
correct,
it opens up that seam so much more. And, I don't find that they move as much when Panarin's on his one-time side. I think Panarin's a little bit more comfortable on his strong side coming downhill, like when he walks up and loads up at the blue line and comes straight down. And Lafreniere seems more comfortable on his strong side too. Like, I think they're both playing positions right now that they're not necessarily as comfortable as they would like to be in. But again, like, how many times has JT Miller, how many times has the puck gone from Lafreniere down to Miller to Mika in the bumper and he's gotten a great look? Like, there was that one play last night, might have been the first period or the third period, where they were shooting on the left side and Gustafsson gets it, like, with his shoulder, but Mika gets a lot behind it. Like, I really thought that was going to go in too. Obviously he gets robbed on the doorstep. He's getting so many good looks. Like, it's wild that the pucks aren't going in. Like, there's no explanation. There's really no explanation other than, like, maybe they're just in their own heads at this point.
Yeah. And listen, and they, you can make the excuses. They've run into good goaltending, great goaltending in some examples. But here's one thing that stands out to me. looks totally different from last year. And I know he finished the year with a little bit more life and everything. And most people, I know it's a big windup here, but most people will tell me that what I'm talking about here is a low bar. This should be the expectation for an NHL player, much less a star.
Mm-hmm.
But the level of engagement that we're getting from Mika Zibanejad this season compared to a year ago, I mean, it's night and day.
Yeah.
And with that comes the opportunities. I mean, listen, he's had a bucketful more opportunities than, think of that first 4 months or whatever the season last year before he finally kind of got going again in the second half. He's like a different guy. And again, I get it. It's a low bar, man. Of course you should be engaged. You're getting paid $8.5 million a year, right? But he wasn't last year. You know, all the off ice drama and all the crap that went on just zapped him, right? And I think he's so important to this team, not only on the ice, but as a leader, as a personality, longest tenured Ranger, all of it. That when he mentally and body language wise and all that went south last year, I think that was one of the biggest issues the Rangers had because guys followed suit.
Yeah.
I really felt that. I saw it from him, and then I just saw it follow suit. You know, the lack of confidence, the bad body language, even Adam Fox. You know, you would see sometimes that terrible body language last year. So bringing it fast forward is have not seen that. And you talk about they're more fun to watch this year, and they are. You know, they're defending better. You know, the really good scoring opportunities. The well's gonna crack at some point, right? But it's about the compete. The compete level is there. That's what I hang my hat on with this group that I couldn't hang my hat on last year with largely the same group of players.
It's a perfect point. I mean, Jim, like every time I keep saying that Mika has been their best player, that's the other side. It's right. It's well, he should be. He's being $8.5 million. That's me and Colby were arguing about that the other morning. And again, like for people that didn't sit here and watch the 82 games last year, you know, that's why they had that argument. But for all Ranger fans who went through last year, again, the bar is low. That's just the reality from last year. The bar is low. But at the same breath, like you can also appreciate what you're watching despite not getting the results, even without last year, right? Like you take away last year. If this, let's say last year doesn't happen, the Rangers won the President's Trophy this past season and they're coming in looking like this season, you're still sitting there and saying, all right, you know, no concern. Like we're playing well, pucks aren't going in. You know, I think that's the same narrative, you know, right. Last year removed. Because what else can you say? We all know what we're watching, right? The pucks just, again, aren't going in. And with Mika specifically, like I know he's a bit, you know, more, he's a sensitive guy, right? Not an angry guy typically. Same thing with a lot of the leaders for the most part. Like, you know, Kreider's not usually an angry guy. Lafreniere, definitely not an angry guy. You know, Vinny and JT can flip that switch. Foxy doesn't really have that anger in him.
Nope.
And I think that's the JT effect also, right? Like you see last night in a Mika post-game press conference or scrum, whatever you want to call it, he gets a little like he's visibly frustrated. And, you know, we were talking about it actually like in the press room, me, Dan Rosen and Vince. And, you know, we were kind of like shook a little bit that was the response. But then after like a second, it was like, that's the exact response we'd want. That's what every fan should want to hear. Like he's taking accountability. He's being realistic, saying he's getting the chances, but he's also visibly angry that the results aren't there. Like what else could you want from a player right now who's, you know, I don't want to say going through a slump because he did score 2 games ago, right? Like he had a nice power play goal, helped them come back, made the play to Panarin. Like he really sparked that comeback in Montreal. So like credit to him for that. But it seems like where last year there were some excuses, this year, at least right now, not to be cheesy or whatever, but that no BS, that was last night, right? Last night was a no BS kind of post game.
Yep.
So that's where it all comes in, I think, and clicks. And sure, guys can say what they want to say and words are words, but the actions for the most part, like have backed it up to your point, Jim, right? Like the effort's there, you know?
So one of the things when JT Miller, even before he was named captain, when there was the debate, who should be the next Rangers captain. And obviously JT Miller was, leading candidate. Probably him and Trocheck were 1 and 2 or 1 and 1A. My concern was if things don't go well, usually when things don't go well for JT or the team that he's on doesn't go well, it doesn't go well. And listen, he does not love coming out every night and being the spokesperson, especially when he's getting asked the same questions night after night after night. Not saying that the questions aren't valid, but he doesn't love it, right? And most guys don't. You pointed to Mika. He didn't love it. Coach doesn't want to have to answer these questions every day. But JT really doesn't love it.
Yeah.
This is a guy that I know pretty well.
You have a hat trick and he wouldn't want to talk to us.
Right. That is exactly right. And I know he's a lot more mature than his first run through here in New York, but there have been those blips along the way with Tampa Bay and with Vancouver, where how's he going to handle if things don't go great? And boy, we're finding out in the midst of finding out right now of how he's going to handle that stuff because it's not easy doing what he's doing, especially when you don't want it. I don't think he ever wants to do that, but he knows it's his role as captain. So I'm curious if you had thought that heading into the season, kind of wondered the same thing that I did, having known him and getting to know him, or was that not even in your mind? You're like, nah, he's the tone setter. This will be fine. Go from there.
You know what? Full transparency, like you definitely know him better than I do. I think I only talked to him like twice last year, so I didn't really get anything. That's the really interesting part of this job is there are obviously some preconceived notions about players that you hear from other media outlets, and then when you get to talk to them, you kind of question yourself of like, that's not who this guy is. And the biggest one for me is like Pierre-Luc Dubois, like who's had a reputation, follow him. Right. And he's one of the coolest people I've met. And like teammates love him. Like the narrative around him, at least from my experience, and again, everyone's experience is different, couldn't have been more false from what I anticipated going into talking to him. And with JT, you get that sense too, where like, just because he's intense and just because he's at times emotional and sometimes wears that on his sleeve doesn't make it negative. Some guys just don't respond to it well, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing for a team. For me, like as a player, I wasn't really a hothead. Like I would not, I probably would crumble under JT. I would, he'd probably like, but I was mentally weak. And I think on any championship team, you don't have mentally weak players. So
right.
You need a guy like him. And, Mike Sullivan and obviously the whole coaching staff is going to work with him. This is a new experience for him. They're not picking JT Miller to be the captain for someone they want him to be. They're picking JT Miller to be the captain for who JT Miller is. Yep. And, if this team's going to win a championship, they don't need 22 JT Millers, but they need, 22, 23, whatever it is. Guys who are just going to like at least respect, watch, and learn from JT Miller. So if Mika can do that on a night in, night out basis, I think if Lafreniere can channel that a little bit more, then again, you're not asking those guys to be JT Miller, but you're asking those guys to live up to his standard. And, I think that's kind of what we've seen so far through 8 games, I think, is guys who at least give a shit. Guys who will battle for one another, but also stay disciplined. Again, like I don't have the stat in front of me, but the Rangers have to be one of the more least penalized teams, I would think.
Absolutely.
So far in the NHL. Like the fact that they did not put Edmonton on the power play once, I think, obviously Borgen gets a delay a game penalty, which you can't really control, but it's not like they were undisciplined against Minnesota really either.
Nope.
Totally I think there are a lot of positives so far, but I thought it was going to be Vinny. To me, just because of the familiarity and, obviously the vocal leader he's been previously. But I understand the decision to go with JT. And I think so far he's been great.
Yeah. And I think too, because Trocheck and JT are so tight. I think when Vinny's healthy and he's back in that room, you're going to see a lot of Vinny the spokesperson.
For sure.
He's more comfortable with it. I don't know that he loves it, but he's just more comfortable, I think, in that role. And, he and JT are in lockstep, so if the message, is coming in the room from the captain or the leadership group, but maybe helping translate it to the media and to the fans, is Vinny helping JT out with that aspect. I absolutely see that. He's like the consigliere, right?
Yeah.
To the Godfather. That's the way I view their relationship.
Yeah. And I will say too, like Vinny has been, for lack of a better term, like protective, I guess, of just the image of the team. Because obviously, remember last year, like there was that report that the Rangers had like a players only meeting about Drury, and Vinny like kiboshed that ASAP. I think these guys understand what playing for the New York Rangers means and take a lot of pride in it. And I think that could have been lost a little bit last year, but Vinny was always a guy to try to maintain that. Which again, like words are words, but you need someone to do it. And the fact that he was doing it, I think a lot of people can respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd argue, and I made this argument when he got hurt, he is as indispensable a guy in that lineup as anybody. I know Igor's Igor, and Fox is Fox, your best defenseman, and for everything that he does, the little things, the gritty things, the leadership things, as well as, he's a top 6 centerman and he's playing with your best offensive talent, night in, night out, 5-on-5, PK, power play, yada, yada. We all know what he does. But when you start stacking up everything he does and the intangibles that he brings with him, man, he's a tough guy to replace. So to see them playing as well as they have, even with, I know, the struggles putting the puck in the net, without him, I think is another kind of, I don't know if it's a positive, but I think it's a good sign. I think it speaks well to the group that they've been able to weather his injury, even though the wins and losses have been, win one, lose one, so far. But
I think he was far and away Pierre Laviolette's favorite player.
For sure.
Yeah, like every time we asked Lavi about Vinny, he raved about Vinny. Like you said, Jim, touches every aspect of the game. PK, PP, face-offs, 5-on-5, or 5, obviously 5-on-5, 5-on-6, 6-on-5, OT, everything. And he's a big absence. I wonder now, I don't know if you're going to lead into this, but I wonder what happens with Laba when Vinny does get back. Because again, like Laba hasn't looked bad, but he hasn't necessarily stood out. And if they're going to keep Mika at center, it's pretty clear that he's probably the guy who comes out.
So I agree. And I was thinking along those lines as well. I still think that Mika ends up back on the wing.
I would hope. I want that to happen. Yeah, I want that to happen.
Right? Because you didn't get a long look at it. Right? We were talking a game and a half before Vinny got hurt and you had to shuffle the lines. Second, Connor Sheary can't stay in your top 6 and be an effective forward for you. He's got to be a bottom 6 guy. I don't see them rushing Gabe Perreault up anytime soon. So we're, it's rocking a hard place here. But they do, I do believe that they need more from Laba. I think he had that kind of that surge at the beginning. He still does a lot of good things, certainly showed a heck of a lot of toughness on Monday, coming back 10 minutes after taking the puck in the mouth. But he does a lot of good things. He's a smart guy. He's strong. He's fast. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes out there. But the bottom line is right now he needs to do more, because I don't think the coach quite has the confidence yet in him or that line.
No. Because
you've seen if there's a choice, it's going to be the Carrick line, not the Laba line, that's going to get those opportunities, especially late in the game.
Yeah. They've had like some flashes, but zero consistency.
Zero.
But what I will say about Laba for a young player, and I think I kind of said it a little bit earlier, like He is very responsible.
Very. Yep.
And again, like his speed, it's going to keep him in the lineup. Like he could even turn into a really strong PKer too. I think he's had some PK reps. I know they've ran Mika, Carrick, and I think Cooley, JT as far as like the top 2 PK groups go. But I'm almost positive I've seen Laba with, was it Edstrom or Radish? I don't remember exactly who it was, and I don't want to speak false things, but Laba could turn into one of those guys who's a strong PKer. I think his physicality and again, like the skating ability keeps him in the lineup, but I don't know. Yeah. I don't know when Vinny's going to come back. So if he could show more before that happens, that's huge. But he's just been a little bit whatever,
Yeah. Totally agree. Okay, listen. Last one for you. I've taken up your whole afternoon here.
All good.
Talking Rangers, man. I can't stop.
I love it too.
It just keeps feeding on it, right? But last one question for you, because we kind of, I mentioned Perot and, kids. Laba's obviously a rookie. A lot of talk now, heating up, maybe Rangers considering or at least taking phone calls or gauging interest in maybe moving Brennan Othmann. Where do you stand on that?
Well, it sucks now because the value is so low, right?
So low.
So, like, what are you really getting in return? Why not hang on to him? And again, like, we don't know what this team might look like next year. I think I had a Puckpedia up. I just wanted to look at like the UFAs and RFAs coming up because there could be a spot for him next year. We got
Panarin's the big one coming off.
Panarin, obviously. Then we got Brodzinski, Sherry signed that 1 year, and I guess there's not that many open spots, but
right.
I still think Brennan Othmann will be an NHL player somewhere. For him coming into camp, just the confidence was not there.
Right.
And hockey players are nothing without confidence. Like you could tell, right?
So I just want to add, because that's great. I talk about his confidence all the time.
Yeah.
So he has this great rookie camp. I get it. Rookie camp. And, he's a guy that's played 25 NHL games. And I get it. He's playing more against prospects, but that did nothing for him. Like he was talking a really good game about confidence.
Yeah.
Heading into camp, heading into rookie camp, played well there. But you felt right from the get-go at beginning of training camp, you didn't sense his confidence at all? Or
I wasn't at camp, so I was just at the preseason games.
Yep. Or at the early preseason games.
Yeah. It's been tough for me to get to Tarrytown with the show and stuff because they practice at like 10:30, 11, so I can't get there in time. But even just watching him play, like his feet weren't going. Like that was something I noticed right away in the first preseason game. Mike Sullivan was yelling at him on the bench, like, get your feet going, get your feet going, get your feet going. And he's a good enough skater. Not like the prettiest skater. He's a little choppy, but good enough skater. But I just felt like he wasn't really hanging on to pucks. He was deferring to line mates. He was throwing the body. He was blocking shots. He was doing the things that you would actually need a third liner to kind of do, but he wasn't doing anything to stand out. I know he scored like 1 goal and had that snipe. It was a nice shot, but I think bringing in Sherry and the internal competition that there was, maybe I almost dropped an F-bomb, but maybe screwed with his head a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, like he's very self-aware. Like when he did talk to media, he knew how he was playing. He wasn't trying to bullshit anybody. And I respect. I've had a good conversation with him, and I had a really good one in Anaheim with him last year. And I still think when you play 25 plus games in the NHL and you're kind of known to be a goal scorer and you don't see a puck go in, it's hard to find that confidence. Like, the guys who get it right away, get that monkey off their back, they don't think about it. But, it's one of my favorite analogies, actually. When you go to a new team or a new league or whatever, and, you don't score a goal in the first, 5-10 games or whatever, versus when you score a goal early on, it's kind of like when you start a new job and you make your first sale, in your first like 3 months, if you don't feel like you're contributing to the company. Right. So you don't really have your personality doesn't really come out. Your confidence doesn't come out because, again, you don't feel like you've really contributed. And I think when players score that first goal in a new place, it's that deep breath of like, okay, I can like belong and fit. Not saying he felt this way, but I've noticed this with a lot of hockey players. Like the guys who come into a new place and again, like struggle off the bat to score. It's like, you never really have that breath of fresh air or that deep breath, So I just don't think he found that yet, but that doesn't mean he never will. So like trading him now, if you weren't going to trade him for Jake Gensel, what are you going to get? What are you going to get? What are you going to get him for?
Right. Good point.
And again, like, one more point. Like I
Yeah.
saw someone, I think Hot Take Hockey, who they do a great job, great YouTube page. I think they tweeted at me like Nick Robertson for Brendan Othman, who says no. What is the point of that trade?
Right.
You're just swapping one guy who's struggling for another guy who's struggling to get in the lineup every night. Like that doesn't do anyone justice.
Right. Unless there's something that, if you're Chris Cerny and company and boy, there's something about player X. In this case, we're talking Othman. Yeah, it's not going to work out here.
Yeah.
That's different. But right, if you're just swapping bodies, just their headache for our head, or not even headache, but underachieving young player for another. Right. I agree. Well, what's the point? I'm with you. Listen, man, really appreciate your time today.
I always love talking hockey with you, Jim. You know that.
Daily face off, not daily, but morning Cuppa Hockey and things. Your whole itinerary of things that you do. My favorite, and we were talking about this beforehand, not that I don't love morning Cuppa Hockey, which I do, which is a go-to, is I love when you're out on that and you're on the skates and you're just bullshitting with it. It's just two guys, one's an NHL player and, and there's you, who I know, of course, but he's out there, but you draw people in and do such a great job making the player comfortable, drawing the people in. They're like, oh man, these are just two good guys and they're just talking hockey and they're having a few laughs. And anyway, it's not it's not as easy as you make it look. And you're doing a hell of a job. And I just wanted to make sure to get that out there.
Appreciate that, Jim. Thank you. Yeah. It's again, like, that's just like, that's such a pinch me thing that I can't believe I get to do that. So it's super cool and I'm happy fans love it. Like that's always something that, my whole goal when I wanted to work in hockey was just to make fans think the game is more fun. Cause all I heard growing up was like, it's this boring buttoned up sport. And I was like, like that's such bullshit. So I appreciate you being a fan of it. And, thank you. Appreciate it. I'll hop on here anytime. I love talking hockey with you.
All right. I appreciate it. And again, sorry they killed your day. Hopefully you didn't miss lunch. You almost missed dinner. We had you on for so long today.
I was at the dentist, so I can't anyway. So I got time.
It can't be worse than that, right?
Yeah. But I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, bud. Welcome back to the Rink Rap Podcast here at Forever Blueshirts. I'm your host, Jim Cerny. That was a lot of fun. And I hope Jonny comes back on the show again. I hope I didn't wear him out. He's a young kid and everything, and former college hockey player and everything. I'm sure he can handle the physical and mental toll that he just was put through here on the Rink Rap Podcast. But seriously, all joking aside, dude does a great job. Everything he touches, everything that he does, from morning Cuppa Hockey to the Bleacher Report work, and it just great stuff. And all of his appearances, on different podcasts and talk shows and NHL Network Radio and all of it. We really love that he carved out some time to hang out with us today and break things down through 8 games. That's basically 1/10 of the New York Rangers season, in which right now they're 3 up, or they are 3-4-1 through the first 8 games. So thank you to Jonny Lazarus for joining us. Real quickly, just touching on a couple topics. What is it about former Rangers and injuries this season? Earlier, I mentioned Matt Zuccarello. Hasn't played yet for the Minnesota Wild. Back issue. Supposed to miss the first couple months of the season. So Zook is out. Kaapo Kakko is out for the Seattle Kraken. Niels Lundqvist, who really found his way with the Dallas Stars. Talk about maybe a little bit of a late bloomer. Didn't work out with the Rangers. Got traded to Dallas. Wasn't working out great there either. But comes back from shoulder surgery last season. He comes back, into training camp this year. Earns a top 4 spot on the Dallas Stars blue line, was playing some really good hockey. Now he's out week to week with a lower body injury. It's like the curse of the former Rangers. And of course it continues with Filip Chytil, and certainly fingers crossed and prayers out there for Filip Chytil, to him and his family and everything that they have been through, that he's been through with all the head injuries and concussions. In case you missed it, of course, we have it on foreverblueshirts.com. We've got the video up. We've got a story about it. He was just absolutely blown up on a Tom Wilson open ice hit on Sunday, and he got smoked after, right as he was passing the puck to right wing, his head was down, didn't see Wilson coming, and Wilson went right through him. It was a clean hit. Might have been interference, might have been a touch late, but he didn't target the head. He caught Filip Chytil in the chest, shoulder. Listen, hockey play. Blew him up. Now, you could say, could he have held up? He saw that, Chytil was passing the puck. He knows Chytil's history. You can make that argument. I'm not even going to delve into that. The bottom line is the bottom line. Chytil got hurt after taking a big, big hit, and he was helped off the ice. There's been no word of concussion as of the time that we're recording this podcast right now. There's been, no word about concussion. He's being evaluated. He was placed on IR by the Vancouver Canucks. Second time that he's been placed on IR after taking a big hit. Late last season, now the beginning of this season. Second time since they acquired him in the JT Miller trade January 31st that the Canucks have had to place Chytil on IR. And that just follows his long injury history with the New York Rangers. So you really feel sorry for the kid. And he's got a great attitude. He is a super guy. And it's just a star-crossed career so far in the NHL for him. I worry about his long-term health. I know you do too as well. So fingers crossed that things work out and that he'll be okay. This former New York Ranger and current Vancouver Canucks center. So there's that. Real quickly, we'll do the Rangers stock report. Stock up, Matthew Robertson. I was wrong. I didn't like his game in the preseason. I understood why he was the seventh defenseman, coming out of training camp. I didn't expect much. Carson Soucy gets injured. Robertson steps into the lineup, not only into the lineup, but into the top four to pair with Will Borgen. And you know what? Eat it, everybody. Matthew Robertson's played some really good hockey. And Johnny and I talked about it in the previous segment, so I don't want to belabor the point, but good on him. Talk about late bloomers. Maybe he fits into that category like Nils Lundqvist as well. But Matthew Robertson getting it done, and good on Mike Sullivan. When Soucy returned to the lineup Monday night, he didn't move Robertson out of the lineup. He didn't even move Robertson out of that second pairing with Will Borgen and put Soucy back into that spot. And even if he wanted to keep Robertson in the lineup, put him on the third pair. No, he kept Robertson in that second pair spot. Good job by Mike Sullivan. I like it. And I like that third pair. I know they didn't play a lot together. They only played about 10 minutes together at even strength on Monday. But Soucy and Schneider, you could do worse than that if that's your third pair. So anyway, Matthew Robertson, stock up. Love it. The Sam Carrick line, stock up. Again, Johnny and I kind of talked about them. Sam Carrick is an absolute whirling dervish out there. Night after night after night after night. Yeah, he stood out in Montreal because he dropped the gloves, got into the big fight. But it's his relentless pursuit of the puck. It's creating the scoring opportunities. It's playing the 200-foot game, being so responsible defensively in his own end, winning face-offs all over, and now flanked by the Twin Towers, who are playing their best hockey. I mean, Matt Rempe has turned into an NHL player. Listen, there are flaws to his game, but you got to like what you see out of that line. As Mike Sullivan said, Fourth line, what line are you talking about? That line is getting more important minutes than the third line, Noah Laba's line, over the last few games. So credit Mike Sullivan again, pivoting, trusting what he sees, what the analytics tell him, but also what he sees with his own two eyes. Good job by Sully. Stock up, Sam Carrick line. Stock down, Urho Vakanainen. Started in the top 6 this season. First few games, I thought he was all right. Noticeable dip in his play. Coach not happy with him. You know, if you were watching the games, you could tell he was not happy with Vakanainen. So when Carson Soucy comes back to the lineup, wasn't Matthew Robertson, as we pointed out, that came out of the lineup. It was Urho Vakanainen, former first-round pick of the Bruins. He's going to get back in there. He's going to play again. He's, you know, I don't think there's any full-time benching or, hey, go sit up in the press box for the next 2 months. I don't think that's going to be the case. But right now, stock is down on Urho Vakanainen. Also stock down, we talked a little bit about Noah Laba. He's a rookie. I'm going to give him a pass here. I'm not going to say stock down. He's more stock neutral. But if you're Johnny Brodzinski and you're Juuso Parssinen, even though Parssinen, you know, scored that big goal in Toronto, got the Rangers a point on the road in Toronto the other night. Like, I don't get the feeling that the coach has any faith in Juuso Parssinen or Johnny Brodzinski. I think they are guys. I think they're placeholders right now until they prove otherwise. Listen, Parssinen did have an assist in his first game, a goal in his second game that he played. So, you know, he's trying to do what he can do. But I don't think the coach has a lot of confidence in them. Maybe I'm reading wrongly into it, but I think I'm right. They feel like placeholders, maybe for when somebody else gets a call at some point. Right? Or when Vinny Trocheck comes back, Connor Sherry comes back, you know, to the third line, that probably means both guys are healthy scratches, Brodzinski and Parssinen. But I don't see a lot of faith that the coach has in them. So we're going to say stock down on them as well. So listen, long podcast today. Really hope you enjoyed it. Love the deep dive with Jonny Lazarus. That was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Remember to follow me on X at Jim Cerny, follow us on X at Forever Blueshirts, and of course, visit the website multiple times a day because we're always writing new stories, new analysis, news stories, you know, talk about Hartford, the prospects in college, everything. And of course, really break it down with the current team in the NHL. The Rangers, who are 3-4-1 through their first 8 games, trying to earn their first home win Thursday. Book it. They're going to get the W. They're going to get the 2 points at home against the San Jose Sharks. If not, come back next week and just tear me apart. Or tear me apart anyway. But keep tuning in. Remember, on audio, you can find us as a member of the Odyssey family. Also on the Apple Podcast, anywhere you digest your favorite podcast. Make sure that's us. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well at the Forever Blueshirts YouTube page. That's enough for me. Enough yapping for me for this week. We'll catch you next week on the next edition of Rink Wrap. Cheers.